Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Tanvi Taneja. Coming up in the next hour. India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman draws the line on FDI from neighbouring countries, says cannot blindly receive foreign direct investment.
You just cannot ignore our economy and the way in which it is growing.
Severe cyclonic storm Dana expected to make landfall over the Odisha West Bengal coast early Friday night. High alert issued. US confirms North Korean troops in Russia, possibly for the Ukraine conflict. South Korea and the United States conduct joint air drills. In the US elections, Trump and Harris trade bitter attacks. Kamala Harris says unhinged Donald Trump is a threat to US democracy. And no end for Boeing labour strike as workers reject the latest contract proposal. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman said that India will retain restrictions on investments from nations with which it shares land borders. Speaking at the Wharton Business School in the United States on Tuesday, Sitharaman said, and I quote her, "We want business, we want investment, but we also need some safeguards because India is located in a neighborhood that is very, very sensitive." She added that I cannot blindly receive foreign direct investment. It is the truth that money is required for investment, but we should not forget its source. Asserting that 1 in every 6 people in the world is an Indian, she said that no country, whether the US or China, can ignore New Delhi today. She made the remarks at a panel discussion organized by the Center for Global Development in Washington, D.C.
India's priority is not to impose its dominance. In the sense we are the biggest democracy, we have in the world the largest population, but to enhance its influence. And you just cannot ignore our economy and the way in which it is growing. So you really can't ignore. And also the geopolitical neighborhood in which we live. No country, the US, which is very far away from us, or China, which is very close to us, cannot ignore us.
Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman is in Washington, D.C. to attend meetings related to the World Bank and the IMF. She interacted with the members and a family of Bank Fund Staff India Club working in the World Bank and IMF, which is one of the oldest clubs in the World Bank group that consists of all Indian and Indian origin staff of the group. Sitharaman's engagement with the Bank Fund Staff India Club emphasized the strong presence of the Indian community within global financial institutions and underscored India's contributions to multilateral organizations. Earlier, Ms. Sitharaman emphasized the importance of multilateral development bank reforms at the 4th G20 Finance Ministers and Central Bank Governor meetings. During her intervention, Sitharaman highlighted the political momentum generated by the G20, which is pushing these multilateral development banks to pursue comprehensive reforms, including evolving their vision, adjusting incentive structures, and enhancing operational and financial capacities. On to Russia, where President Vladimir Putin will meet UN Chief Antonio Guterres for the first time in over 2 years on the sidelines of the last day of the 3-day 16th BRICS meeting. According to Kremlin, the pair is expected to discuss the conflict in Ukraine as well as the escalating crisis in West Asia. Guterres has repeatedly criticized Moscow's military offensive against Ukraine, saying it sets a dangerous precedent for the world. The two men last saw each other in the first weeks of the offensive when Guterres traveled to Moscow during Russia's offensive in South Ukraine's Mariupol. And the BRICS summit in Kazan has also proved to be the backdrop for a major bilateral meeting between India and China. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Chinese President Xi Jinping have had their first formal bilateral meeting after a gap of 5 years, just a day after the two sides had a breakthrough agreement on disengagement of troops on the LAC border, as the relationship had been put into reverse gear following the 2020 Galwan clashes. Here's what happened.
A much-anticipated meeting between India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Chinese President Xi Jinping took place in Russia's Kazan on the sidelines of the 16th BRICS summit on Wednesday. Although the two leaders last met informally in 2023 in Johannesburg on the sidelines of the previous BRICS summit, a formal meeting between the two leaders had only taken place 5 years ago in India's Mahabalipuram. Referring to the meeting, the Indian Prime Minister posted on X, "Met President Xi Jinping on the sidelines of the Kazan BRICS summit. India-China relations are important for the people of our countries and for regional and global peace and stability. Mutual trust, mutual respect and mutual sensitivity will guide bilateral relations." The first India-China bilateral after 2019 took place just a day after an agreement between the two Asian emerging economies on disengagement at the de facto border between the two nations. A decision to come up with patrolling arrangements on the line of actual control was also announced on Tuesday, which would revert the situation on the border to how it was prior to the 2020 summer clashes between the armies of the two sides. India's Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri briefed the media after the meeting as to how the ties would be taken forward now.
They instructed the special representatives to meet at an early date and to continue their efforts in this regard. You may recall that Special Representative of India, Mr. Ajit Doval, who is also the National Security Advisor, and the Special Representative of the People's Republic of China, Foreign Minister Wang Yi, also a member of the Politburo, have met on the sidelines of international events, but they have not had a round of talks in the Special Representatives format since December 2019. So following today's meeting, we hope to schedule the next round of the SR's talks at an appropriate date.
The Foreign Secretary also elaborated on future course of action.
The restoration of peace and tranquility in the border areas will create space for returning us towards the path of normalization of our bilateral relations. Officials will now take the next steps to discuss enhancing strategic communication and stabilizing bilateral relations by utilizing the relevant official bilateral dialogue mechanisms, including at the level of our respective foreign ministers.
Over the last 10 years, India-China relations have been through a roller coaster ride. From the highs of President Xi's 2014 state visit to Prime Minister Modi's reciprocal China visit the next year. There were also landmark informal visits in Wuhan and Chennai. But the 2020 Galwan clash in eastern Ladakh made India not only hit the brakes, but also put relations on key fronts like investments in reverse gear. Now another shift has been made to get the relationship moving forward, which could decide the future of the fabled Asian century. Gautam Roy's report, DD India.
German Chancellor Olaf Scholz will be visiting India at the invitation of Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Thursday. The German Chancellor, along with Prime Minister Narendra Modi, will co-chair the 7th Intergovernmental Consultations on October 25th. The two leaders will also hold bilateral talks to discuss enhanced security and defense cooperation, greater opportunities for the mobility of talent, deeper economic cooperation, green and sustainable development partnership, and collaboration in the area of emerging and strategic technologies. Discussions will also focus on important regional and global developments. Both leaders will also address the 18th Asia-Pacific Conference of German Business being held in New Delhi on October 25th. Chancellor Scholz has visited India twice last year for a bilateral state visit in February 2023 and to attend the G20 Leaders Summit in September 2023. India and Germany have a strategic partnership since the year 2000. The two countries are also celebrating 50 years of science and technology collaboration this year. So DW's political correspondent Thomas Sparrow from Berlin tells us how important are these intergovernmental consultations.
Well, indeed, these intergovernmental consultations are important from a German perspective. They are seen as a rather exclusive, high-level format. It's a format that essentially the German government only develops with a handful of countries with which it wants to cooperate very closely. And they are relevant also because they encompass not only meetings between the heads of government, but also between the respective cabinets. And in this particular case, the German-Indian consultations have officially three main areas of discussion: innovation, sustainability and mobility. But it's clear that beyond these topics, both governments will also probably discuss some key international challenges like the wars in Ukraine and the Middle East, migration or climate change. And while it's probable that both governments will want to highlight their increasing cooperation, it is also evident that in some of these challenges, some of these global challenges, and in particular when it comes to Ukraine, both countries have not always seen eye to eye.
The German cabinet recently adopted a key strategic document called Focus on India. Thomas, can you give us more details about this document?
The German cabinet adopted this month a strategy paper which is seen or described as the base for future bilateral relations. The German government wants to raise the strategic partnership with India and expand cooperation in all sorts of areas, in areas ranging from security and defense to environmental policy to research to education, trade, agriculture. Particularly relevant for Germany is also the issue of skilled migration. The government wants India to play a central role as a source of well-qualified skilled labor. The key objectives from the German side on this particular matter are to reduce bureaucratic hurdles, to digitize the visa process for India, and increase German language courses in India. And these are, by the way, some of the main challenges Germany has faced so far when attracting skilled workers from abroad.
Thank you, Thomas Sparrow from DW Berlin, joining us on Olaf Scholz's visit to India. Now, severe cyclonic storm Dana is expected to make landfall over the Odisha-West Bengal coast between October 24th and 25th. As per the Indian Meteorological Department, the cyclonic storm has intensified into a severe cyclonic storm over central and adjoining Northwest Bay of Bengal. All schools in the coastal districts of Odisha and West Bengal have been shut. The states have also started evacuation process from coastal districts that are likely to bear the brunt of the cyclone. DD India's Prasenjit Bakshi joins us from Kolkata now. Prasenjit, as the southern part of West Bengal braces for the cyclone set to hit late night, what preparations have been made by the district administration?
Look, Tanvi, all type of precautionary and preventive measures are getting in place by NDRF and the respective governments of Odisha and West Bengal. Particularly, the Odisha government is taking the major evacuation process of around 1 million of persons staying in the coastal districts of Bhadrak and Kendapara and other places. And equally, in West Bengal also, in East Medinipur and the Sundarban area, evacuation by the NDRF and the local government is going on. Meanwhile, the weather in the entire area of this coastal region, starting from Odisha to West Bengal, this is cloudy, raining, and storm, not exactly, but wind speed is increasing hour by hour. So all the precautionary measures are taking place. But at the same time, I must say that in some places of West Bengal, where ferry service is very important for regular communication, that has been closed. Bhubaneswar Airport and Kolkata Airport, both are getting closed by the 6 p.m. in the evening till tomorrow morning. So such type of preventive and precautionary measures are getting place. So Tanvi, according to the weather department, the landfall will be, as you have said, that will be sometime in the midnight of today, 24th, and it will continue till early morning of 25th, somewhere between Bhitarkanika and Dhamara of Odisha, which is very close to West Bengal coastal area. So both West Bengal and particularly Odisha are in high alert. Tanvi.
Okay, and post the landfall, do we know what arrangements have been made by the Navy, Army and the Coast Guard units for rescue and relief work?
Right. With the local government, all type of tarpaulin, the type of drinking water and other things, medical facilities, all are ready for the post landfall, and even the power department, that is also in high alert, because there is all possibility that the power supply will be hampered due to this landfall, and at the same time communication system will be hampered. So the telecom department, power department, they are also in high alert. And apart from that, as I said, that all the dwellers of the this coastal region, they are evacuated to the safer places. So their food and other arrangements are going on after landfall, and also the tree cutting. That is also very important to open the roads. So NDRF team is ready to open the roads immediately after the landfall is completed.
Okay. Thank you very much. Prasenjit Bakshi reporting from Kolkata on Cyclone Dana's expected landfall tonight. Still to come on DD India News Hour. North Korean trash balloon lands in Seoul's presidential compound, this time carrying leaflets mocking the first couple. Antara launches strikes targeting Kurdish fighters in Iraq and Syria in response to Wednesday's terror attack. And France convenes an aid conference for Lebanon to mobilize humanitarian aid and army support for the region.
This is a special episode where we are taking stock of India's relations with a very important part of its extended neighborhood, which is Central Asia.
Friendly ties of Uzbekistan and India is historically roots going back thousands of years.
As I'm from Kazakhstan, I can say we have strong relations, economic relations with India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Tanvi Taneja. On to the Asia-Pacific region. North Korea has sent troops to Russia, which was confirmed by US officials on Wednesday. The United States said that there is evidence that North Korea has sent about 3,000 soldiers who are being trained before being deployed to the battlefields in Ukraine. North Korea has promised to provide some 10,000 soldiers to Russia, whose deployment will likely be completed by December.
We assess that between early to mid-October, North Korea moved at least 3,000 soldiers into eastern Russia. We assess that these soldiers traveled by ship from the Wonsan area in North Korea to Vladivostok, Russia. These soldiers then traveled onward to multiple Russian military training sites in eastern Russia, where they are currently undergoing training.
Reacting on this, South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol said on Thursday that Seoul will not sit idle over Pyongyang's deployment of troops in Russia. Yoon made these comments after talks with visiting Polish President Andrzej Duda, adding that the two countries agreed North Korea's deployment was a provocation that threatens global security beyond the Korean Peninsula and Europe. Now, amid high tensions in the region, South Korea and the United States have conducted joint air drills to further improve operational sustainability and support capabilities. The 12-day Freedom Flag exercise got underway across various air bases in South Korea, mobilizing over 110 aircraft, including the South's stealth fighters. The exercise is focusing on aircraft deployment and tactics planning before next week's flight drills. Further escalations are being reported as a North Korean balloon carrying trash landed on Seoul's presidential compound on Thursday. South Korean Daily reported that the balloon carried anti-South leaflets mocking President Yoon and his wife Kim Kyon-hee. Activist groups in South Korea have long sent propaganda northwards carried by balloons, including leaflets and US dollar bills. North Korea has been bombarding the South with trash-carrying balloons since May in response to Seoul's activist propaganda leaflets. One of the main drivers of Turkey's defense industry became the target of a terrorist attack on Wednesday, killing at least 5 and injuring over 22. In response, Ankara launched strikes targeting Kurdish fighters in Iraq and Syria.
Hours after a deadly terror attack shook Turkey, Ankara launched airstrikes targeting Kurdish fighters in Iraq and Syria. A total of 32 sites linked to the group were destroyed. Turkish government has blamed the group for the attack, which claimed 5 lives and left over 22 injured at the Turkish Aerospace Industries campus. According to Interior Minister, 2 attackers were neutralized.
When compared to previous similar attacks, we have a strong opinion that it is in the PKK terrorist organization. But as I said, it will become certain once the identities of the attackers are determined, which we will announce with you to the public, our saintly people.
The attack has drawn widespread condemnation both within Turkey and internationally. During the meeting at the BRICS summit, Russian President Vladimir Putin expressed his condolences to the Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan. NATO, the European Union, Berlin and the White House also strongly condemned the assault on Turkey's defense firm.
I do want to start by extending our thoughts to the victims of the horrible terrorist attack in Ankara, Turkey this morning. Our prayers are with all of those affected and their families, and of course also the people of Turkey at this very difficult time. Now, Turkish authorities, as they said, are investigating this as a possible terrorist attack. And while we don't yet know the motive or who is exactly behind it, we strongly condemn this act of violence.
While no group has officially claimed responsibility for the attack, Turkish authorities suggest it bears the hallmark of the Kurdistan Workers' Party (PKK), a group listed as a terrorist organization by Turkey and its Western allies. The PKK has waged a long-running insurgency against the Turkish state. With inputs from Tripti Tripathi, Bureau Report, GD India.
Now, in the race to the White House, Trump and Harris have traded bitter attacks on their campaign trail. Kamala Harris said that unhinged Donald Trump is a threat to U.S. democracy, while the former president called his opponent a tax queen. So as campaigning is in full swing in the states, battleground states of North Carolina and Georgia have set records on the first day of early voting held last week.
US Election Day is 12 days away on November 5th. As polls show tight presidential race, candidates Kamala Harris and Donald Trump pick up pace to sway voters. Race between the two now intensifies. A Financial Times poll said that former president and Republican candidate Donald Trump leads rival Kamala Harris 44% to 43% on the US economy. Another poll by Wall Street Journal also showed Trump leading 47% to 45%. The poll surveyed 1,500 registered voters from a margin of error of plus minus 2.5% points. In a campaigning event in battleground state Georgia, Trump highlighted the issue of border security under the current government.
We got to get a lot of votes, but we made the border really good, and now we're going to have to do it again. The difference is this border is 10 times, 15 times worse than it was in 2016, as you know. But we're going to stop it, and we're going to deport all of these criminals that have been brought into the country.
Taking a dig at opponent Donald Trump, Vice President Kamala Harris called him a fascist.
And it is clear from John Kelly's words that Donald Trump is someone who, I quote, certainly falls into the general definition of fascist, who in fact vowed to be a dictator on day one and vowed to use the military as his personal militia to carry out his personal and political vendettas. Donald Trump is increasingly unhinged and unstable.
According to the latest data, around 25 million voters have already cast ballots. Battleground states of North Carolina and Georgia set records on their first day of early voting held last week. Harris and Trump remain neck and neck in most competitive states, with less than 2 weeks to go until the November 5th election. Bureau Report, TT India.
And for more on the US elections, we are joined by DD India's Amritpal Singh, who joins us from Austin, Texas now. Amrit, as the campaigning intensifies, the kind of language being used by both the candidates in this election is really foul, which takes democracy to new lows. Your take on that?
Oh, that's right. I mean, the kind of language that has been used in this campaign, the kind of campaign that has been run by both sides, really has hit the lowest that Americans have witnessed in a very long time. When I talk to the people on the road, the American voters from both camps, the Republicans and the Democrats, the average voter, despite their loyalties to their own parties and their own pledges to their ideologies, they agree that the kind of language being used by both sides, calling each other mentally unstable, lock him up politically. Joe Biden was born a retard, Kamala became one, he's unhinged, mentally unstable, things like that. The Americans tell me that they haven't heard this language in a very long time, and in fact they said that earlier also contests were closed. Remember in 2000 the US Supreme Court had to set in to finalize the election between Al Gore and George W. Bush Jr. So contests have been closed, but this time around the kind of foul language being used, the kind of barbs being traded, the kind of personal attacks, it really has hit the lowest that the Americans have seen in a long time. That's right.
On to West Asia now. Israel struck Beirut's southern suburbs on Wednesday and Hezbollah fired precision-guided missiles at Israeli targets. Smoke was seen rising above southern Beirut as exchange of fire began as the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken toured the region with the aim to halt the conflict. Hezbollah confirmed the death of Hashim Safieddine in an Israeli strike. Safieddine was expected to succeed Hassan Nasrallah, who was also killed by Israel. Meanwhile, an aid conference for Lebanon opened in Paris on Thursday in the hope of raising hundreds of millions of dollars, with host France also targeting diplomatic progress for the conflict-ravaged country. But in the absence of key players, including U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, any political breakthrough appears remote around the conflict between Israel and Lebanon's Hezbollah. Paris is also seeking an increase in humanitarian aid for a country to which it has historic ties and which has a large diaspora in France. Lebanon's Prime Minister Najib Mikati and key ministers involved in relief efforts are attending this conference, but neither Israel nor Iran was invited. You're with us on DD India News are still to come on the show. Things getting difficult for Canada's Justin Trudeau as dissident MPs call for his resignation. Situation in Bangladesh tense again as Mohammad Yunus-led interim government bans the student wing of Sheikh Hasina's party. And India remembers its beloved cartoonist RK Laxman. We bring you more on the genius's humour, satire and creativity.
Recycle, repair, renew. Are these cool trending terms or age-old traditions?
We started distributing the compost. The residents were really happy. It also made them understand the need for waste management, why segregation was important, because it was happening right in front of their houses.
Over the past years, we also expanded into the area of repair, and that obviously has an additional impact on saving e-waste, and that's an additional area where we see quite some potential.
The panels contain a lot of rare commodities, and you can save a lot of energy if you use recycled materials. It's also also extremely important to keep those recycled materials here in Germany.
Biotanks, the sewage water gets recycled. It can be used for different purposes or drained into the ground.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I am Tanvi Taneja. Here's a relook at the headlines we are tracking at this hour. India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman draws the line on FDI from neighbouring countries, says cannot blindly receive foreign direct investment. Severe cyclonic storm Dana expected to make landfall over Odisha West Bengal coast early Friday night. High alert issued. US confirms North Korean troops in Russia possibly for Ukraine conflict. South Korea and US conduct joint air drills. In the race for the White House, Trump and Harris trade bitter attacks. Kamala Harris says unhinged Donald Trump is a threat to US democracy. And no end for Boeing labour strike as workers reject the latest contract proposal. And now let's take you to Kazan, where External Affairs Minister of India, Dr. S. Jaishankar, is speaking at the BRICS Summit Outreach Programme.
Reach those who are currently left behind. How do we create a more equitable global order? First, by strengthening and expanding platforms of an independent nature, and by widening the choices in different domains and minimizing undue reliance on those that can be leveraged. This is really where BRICS can make a difference for the Global South. Second, by reforming established institutions and mechanisms, especially the UN Security Council in the permanent and the non-permanent categories. So too, the multilateral development banks, whose working procedures are just as outdated as that of the UN. India initiated an effort during its G20 presidency, and we are glad to see that Brazil is taking it forward. Third, by democratizing the global economy through creating more production hubs. The COVID experience is a sharp reminder of the need for more resilient, redundant, and shorter supply chains. For essential needs, every region legitimately aspires to create their own production capabilities. Fourth, by correcting distortions in global infrastructure that are a legacy from the colonial era. The world urgently needs more connectivity options that enhance logistics and mitigate risks. This must be a collective endeavor for common good with utmost respect for territorial integrity and sovereignty. And fifth, by sharing experiences and new initiatives. India's digital public infrastructure, its unified payment interface, the Gati Shakti infrastructure hold a larger relevance. The International Solar Alliance, the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure, the Global Biofuel Alliance, Mission Life, and the International Big Cat Alliance are similarly initiatives of common interest. As a first responder, be it for natural calamities, health emergencies, or economic crisis, we seek to do our fair share. Excellencies, addressing conflicts and tensions effectively is a particular need of the day. Prime Minister Modi has emphasized that this is not an era of war. Disputes and differences must be settled by dialogue and diplomacy. Agreements, once reached, must be scrupulously respected. International law should be adhered to without exception, and there should be zero tolerance for terrorism. Excellencies, the situation in the Middle East, West Asia for us, is an understandable concern. There is a widespread anxiety that the conflict would spread further in the region. Maritime trade has also been deeply affected. The human and material consequences of further escalation are truly serious. Any approach has to be fair and durable, leading to a two-state solution. Excellencies, we meet in difficult circumstances. The world must be prepared to think afresh on long-standing challenges. Our gathering is a message that we are indeed prepared to do so. I thank you for your attention.
Большое спасибо. Индия демонстрирует.
So that was India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar's address at the BRICS Summit's outreach program in Kazan. The minister stressed the need to evolve production capabilities for developing global infrastructure, and he also added with respect to territorial sovereignty and integrity. The minister listed India's achievements and initiatives in the advent of natural calamities, COVID pandemic and global conflicts. He further went on to reiterate Prime Minister Narendra Modi's words that this is not an era of war and dialogue must be held to solve differences. He said agreements once reached must be respected. He also said that there must be zero tolerance to terrorism, and he also said that widespread anxiety of the broader fallout of the West Asia crisis were regarded as a serious matter by all. And lastly, he said that the world must be prepared to think afresh to solve this era of turmoil and global conflicts world over. So those were the highlights coming from the BRICS summit. It's the last day of the BRICS summit in Kazan. Moving on, the growing dissidence among Canada's Liberal Party MPs over Prime Minister Trudeau's handling of internal and external affairs of the country have made things very difficult for him, as the party gave him an ultimatum to either make up his own mind or step down. This ultimatum was given for the Liberal leader to step down by October 28th. The development comes after the party lost two of its strongholds, Toronto and Montreal, in a special election held recently, showing a lack of leadership on Trudeau's part. One of the causes of the rift in the party is attributed to his worsening ties with India, more recently since September last year. The distribution of postal polling cards for the parliamentary elections in Sri Lanka commenced on Wednesday at district secretariats across the country. The 2024 parliamentary elections are scheduled for November 14th this year. The Election Commission of Sri Lanka has announced that postal polling cards will be issued to about 7.3 lakh eligible voters, marking an increase of approximately 23,000 voters. All necessary formalities have been completed regarding the distribution process, and the official polling cards are expected to be delivered by this Saturday across the island. Marking of postal ballots will take place on October 30th, November 1st and November 4th. Let's take you to Bangladesh now, where the interim government led by Professor Muhammad Yunus has banned Awami League's student organisation, Bangladesh Chhatra League, BCL. The Ministry of Home Affairs has issued a gazette notification in this regard on Wednesday amid the demand raised by the student movement against discrimination that spearheaded the movement against Bangladesh former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. According to the notification, over the past 15 years under the Awami League government, Chhatra League has been involved in various activities that disrupt public safety, including murder, rape, harassment in student dormitories and tender manipulation. Bangladesh Chhatra League was protesting against the surge in rape cases and harassment of women for some days. The Awami League leader, Bahuddin Nasim, condemned the interim government, saying that the ban on the Bangladesh Chhatra League is an attack on the spirit of the Liberation War and the Constitution of Bangladesh. The Indian Army is hosting the second edition of its flagship international seminar, the Chanakya Defence Dialogue, on October 24th and 25th at the Manekshaw Centre in New Delhi. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh will attend the event later in the day. Themed Drivers in Nation Building, Fueling Growth Through Comprehensive Security, this high-profile event will facilitate vital discussions on integrating security dynamics within national and international policy making, and aims to craft visionary strategies for sustainable and inclusive growth. The two-day event will bring together an exceptional group of policymakers, strategic thinkers, academics and defence personnel, veterans, scientists and SMEs from India and abroad. and also prominent speakers from the United States, Russia, Israel and Sri Lanka. The dialogue will explore India's strategic pathways towards building a developed India, Viksit Bharat at 2047, focusing on the role of comprehensive security in national development. The Chanakya Defence Dialogue will consist of 6 expert-led sessions, each focusing on critical aspects of comprehensive security. So, resilient supply chains are key to national security and economy, experts feel. DD India's Vishal Barasto caught up with the Economic Advisory Council member to the Prime Minister of India at the Chanakya Defence Dialogue to find out more.
Here at the Chanakya Defence Dialogue, and I have with me Dr. Sanjeev Sanyal from the Prime Minister's Economic Council. Dr. Sanyal, when you say ships, chips and information, how critical are they in the changing geopolitical situation?
When we are talking about supply chains, we are a large economy, we import a large number of things, we export a large number of things. Now, I personally think that if you're thinking of supply chain resilience, we have got to invest and create the circumstances that we build a strong shipbuilding industry. We have much more in flagging and ownership of ships. And that requires us to begin to make certain changes in the way we, for example, classify infrastructure and so on. But I think this is something we need to pay a lot of attention to.
Now, talking about chips, it is another very important topic as far as the resilient supply chain is concerned.
Yes, I mean, moving from ships to chips. Here again, another example. We had the cars, we could build cars, we have a huge automobile industry. But because there were few chips were not available, we couldn't use them ourselves.
So, on this day, 24th of October, India celebrates the birth anniversary of the famous cartoonist of India, RK Laxman. DD India's Sumana Bhati Revanasiddappa brings us more on the creator of the common man, the silent spectator.
This was the caption that the readers of Times of India would look out for every morning as they grabbed the popular morning daily. The caption was that of a daily single-column comic strip in the front page of the newspaper carrying the illustrations of cartoonist RK Laxman. It captured a situation as witnessed by a semi-bald, bespectacled character with a prominent nose, dressed in a checked long shirt and dhoti. He was Laxman's common man. From idiosyncrasies of politicians to corruption in bureaucracy, shamelessness of the affluent, political opportunism and economic challenges and hardships of the middle and the poor social class, the common man was a silent witness to the harsh realities of his daily existence for over 6 decades. The public fell in love with the humor, satire, innocuous sarcasm, and creativity of Laxman, who immortalized the common man. Born on October 24, 1921, in Mysuru, the city in the South Indian state of Karnataka, Laxman had started doodling as a toddler on the floor, doors, and walls of his house. His skills and creative abilities kept improving with age, and soon started attracting attention beyond his house and immediate circle. While he was in college, Laxman illustrated stories by his author brother RK Narayan in the Hindu newspaper. His first recognition as a cartoonist came when he created illustrations for the Koravanji, a magazine published from Bengaluru at the time of the Second World War. His satirical portrayal of wartime blackouts and rationing captured public attention. Laxman moved to India's financial capital Mumbai around 1946, where he joined the Free Press Journal as a political cartoonist. Later in 1951, Laxman joined the Times of India, where he created the comic strip You Said It. As the common man of You Said It got immortalized, it also inspired the basis for a comedy series on Indian television called Wagle Ki Dunya. His sketches were also etched in the minds of Indian television viewers across all ages in the television adaptation of R.K. Narayan's Malgudi Days. The fictional world of Malgudi with the iconic character Swami, the little boy, came to life through his illustrations. Beyond You Said It, Laxman's artistic strokes with his brush left a mark in the world of Indian advertising as well. Gattu, the mascot for Asian Paints, an Indian paint company, was yet another marvel of his creation. Over the years, Laxman's creativity was honored with several awards and recognitions. Laxman left the common man's world on 26 January 2015. His last cartoon was about the common man witnessing India's Mars orbiter mission.
RK Laxman's wit and non-caustic sarcasm was very much accepted, appreciated and loved by all, as it struck a chord with every audience. His stroke of silent common man in a small box did trigger imagination of millions of people across the world without uttering much. With video journalist Mahesh Sharma, along with Amit Mukherjee, this is Sumana Bati Revan Siddappa from New Delhi reporting for DD India.
Still to come on DD India News Hour. Tesla CEO Elon Musk plans to launch driverless robo-taxis in California and Texas by next year. Defending champion Novak Djokovic withdraws from Paris Masters, hints at early end to the season. And we show you how English singer Paul McCartney's performance dazzled Argentinian fans in Cordoba.
This is a special episode where we are taking stock of India's relations with a very important part of its extended neighborhood, which is Central Asia.
Friendly ties of Uzbekistan and India is historically roots going back thousands of years.
As I'm from Kazakhstan, I can say we have strong relations, economic relations with India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Tanvi Taneja. In some business news now, Boeing factory workers voted to reject a contract offer and continue their more than 5-week strike in a blow to investor and management hopes of a resolution to the dispute. The vote was 64% in opposition to the deal, which offered a 35% rise in wages over 4 years. Union leaders said that they were ready to immediately resume negotiations with Boeing on the first new contract since 2014. Over 30,000 machinists downed tools in Boeing's West Coast factories on September 13th, halting production of the best-selling 737 MAX. Since then, Boeing and the workers' union have been locked in negotiations, with both sides accusing the other of torpedoing talks. The strike has deprived the company of much-needed cash that it gets from delivering new planes to airlines. On Wednesday, the company reported a third-quarter loss of more than $6 billion. Tesla CEO Elon Musk declared plans to launch driverless ride-hailing services in California and Texas by next year. Speaking on the company's earnings call, Musk claimed that Tesla could rule out fully autonomous vehicles for paid rides despite facing potential regulatory hurdles. California's Department of Motor Vehicles requires safety drivers for testing, and Tesla hasn't applied for a permit to operate without one. Musk remains confident, predicting approval by next year, though he admitted some challenges are beyond Tesla's control. Meanwhile, Texas, with fewer regulatory barriers, may be an easier path. Tesla's full self-driving system is under scrutiny from regulators, but this ambitious move could revolutionize transportation if the company can clear legal and technical roadblocks. Japanese conglomerate 7 & I Holdings plan to hive off underperforming business and expand overseas as it battles to win over critics and remain independent. 7 & I Holdings laid out a growth plan on Thursday that focused on its core 7-Eleven convenience stores and avoided any mention of a $47 billion takeover bid from Canada's alimentation couche-tard. Its chief executive said that they are confident that they can unlock shareholder value itself. NVIDIA's CEO Jensen Huang and Reliance Industries chairman Mukesh Ambani had a fireside chat on artificial intelligence development in India at NVIDIA's AI Summit. Speaking on India's growing AI capacity and infrastructure prowess, Mukesh Ambani spoke about what makes India different from other competitors.
The IT industry of India is world-renowned for its very large scale and not just in size, but in deep expertise of computer science. Very few countries in the world has this natural resource, this amazing natural resource called IT and computer science expertise. In the last couple of years, we've been working together to upskill, and we've now upskilled about 200,000 IT professionals into the world of AI. You know, what do we have to do together, and how can we work together to help transform India at the speed of light, really, because everything is moving so fast, to transform India into a center not of just IT, but a center of AI?
So, from my point of view, Jensen, let me tell you my own experience in India. First, right, as our Prime Minister has said, that this is a new aspirational India. What we have today is we are among the only country in the world where the average age of 1.4 billion Indians is below 35. So what is driving our economy is not only new technologies like AI, but also aspirations. And I believe that, you know the Prime Minister, and I believe that his leadership in terms of converting India to a premier digital society has been vital and continues to drive activity at the ground level. It's fast becoming an innovation hub for the world in terms of where we are and not the manufacturing hub.
You're watching DD India News. Our time now for some sporting action. Ravichandran Ashwin provided India with early breakthroughs as he became the highest wicket taker in the ICC World Test Championship. India have managed to take 5 wickets at tea thanks to spinners Ashwin, who took 3 wickets, and Washington, who bagged 2. Earlier, New Zealand skipper Tom Latham won the toss and opted to bat against India in the second test in Pune. Trailing 0-1 in the series, India have included Shubman Gill, Akash Deep and Washington Sundar in their playing 11, replacing KL Rahul, Mohammad Siraj and Kuldeep Yadav. Novak Djokovic has withdrawn from Paris Masters, where he is a 7-time champion, in a move which could potentially signal the end of his roller coaster season. Djokovic, who is the defending champion in Paris, has won a record 40 Masters titles in his career, along with 24 Grand Slam titles. His 2024 season has yielded 1 title, his emotional Olympic gold medal in Paris in August, and he is currently on 99 career trophies. The Paris indoor tournament runs next week from October 28th to November the 3rd. And the legendary Beatles icon Paul McCartney dazzled Argentine fans on Wednesday night with a captivating performance in Cordoba. Paul opened the show with his classic hit, Can't Buy Me Love, sending waves of excitement to the devoted fans. So that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. Do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on our different social media handles at DD India Live. And of course, you can also download our DD India mobile app for quick news and updates on the go. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Tanvita Neja from all of us here in New Delhi. Thank you for watching DD India News Hour. Namaskar.